I'm waiting for the Christmas version of Four Loko to come out, like peppermint and cinnamon.
Colt 45 juniper.
It's actually every Christmas flavor you can imagine.
The sixth of 2021's 12 Beers of Christmas comes with a most festive bonus. Our friend Brian Huntley from Circuited Brewers YouTube channel not only sent us his Chocolate Coffee Imperial Stout Homebrew to enjoy, but also a full smorgasbord of homemade goodies to pair with it. We're talking dark chocolate cashews, cinnamon pecan pralines, next level Rice Krispie treats, Applewood smoked white cheddar, and the all-important jalapeño and cheddar snack sticks. Boom! We're about to get real nerdy here as Brian explains how this Imperial Stout, which is really a lesson in post-fermentation modifications to build the beer you want, came to be, and a lightning round how-to on making all of these yummy snacks. Just ahead. First, a reminder that Chop and Brew 12 Beers of Christmas videos are made possible with support from Imperial Yeast and our Patreon party people. They are the ghost of Christmas awesome in our book. Join them at patreon.com/chopandbrew.
On the sixth beer of Christmas, my brew love gave to me. We got a Chocolate Coffee Imperial Stout from one Brian Huntley at Circuited Brewers, y'all. And not only did he send a brew, I think this is our first, it may not be, but either way, it's the first and only this year Chop and Brew tasting notes, because Brian, when he sent this box with this beer, show him what's up, Todd Jackson. I can't use my plate or it'll fall on the computer. Bam! Holy moly, man.
Got everything. Brian hooked us up with some sweet homemade goodies.
So we're going to talk about all that. First off, y'all, cheers. Thank you, Brian, for sending us this beer. That was super nice.
Cheers.
Brian, what are you drinking? That don't look like Chocolate Coffee Imperial Stout.
Oh, I'm actually drinking a hazy New England IPA. I actually sent Todd a can of this. This is the second. This is version 2 of what I sent you, Todd. It's got I added mosaic to it, so it's I'm all out of the Imperial Stouts. I can't have it with you guys. So
okay.
Like,
so it's a ghost. It's a beer of Christmas past for you at this point.
Exactly. It's a ghost beer. Yeah. Kelly liked it a lot, so
Could be a dangerous one to like when you get above 8%. It just happens, right?
In our other Hollywood square here, we got Todd Jackson. Who are you, Todd Jackson?
Oh, I'm Chip's buddy from work. I'm at Northern Brewer. It's my full-time gig, and just work with Brian, some other YouTubers, and kind of work to help make sure that they're making beer so that the content gets created and it's out there on the internet for all those that need to learn. So kind of puts me in this nice middleman position. Now I get the reap the benefits of being on Chop and Brew and eating some delicious stuff and treats from Brian.
I wouldn't call you a third wheel, but you are definitely the third window at this.
Yeah.
On
my screen, I'm window 1.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
So
all right.
We'll call Todd the rudder. He's going, in a straight direction.
All right, Brian. Well, we're gonna drink it. Why don't you walk us through real quick the recipe and kind of just your inspiration and why you brewed this up for this kind of time of year.
So I was reviewing a system, the Brew Easy Compact, and I wanted to try to max the system out, as much grain as I could get into it. So I kind of come up with a little bit of recipe, just an original, trying to, hit the mark with the grain bill, and also brew something that was tasty as well. So there was a couple of things that I did with it that were a little bit different than what I'd done before. So the recipe is 48.6% Maris Otter, 33.3% pale ale malt, 5.6% flake barley, 5.6% caramel 120, 4.2% chocolate malt, and that's 455 SRM, and then also a 2.8% caramel 400, which is a Viking malt. Now, for the hops, I use something different. Actually, it was one of those weird things, like when you have different places have stuff on sale, and you like $8 a pound or something like that. So the hop that I actually used in this thing was Newport, and always makes me think of cigarettes. It's funny. But it actually what I found was it had a really interesting aroma. And then actually when you drink the beer, there's a really interesting like flavor profile that Newport brings to it, which is just something different that I hadn't really experienced before. Now, because I didn't use any like roasted barley or anything like that, I didn't actually get a lot of the grain bitterness that I wanted. So what I did to try this started out just like regular as an imperial stout, but then when I tasted the finished beer, I'm like, oh, this needs some bitterness. So what I did was actually went and got some I think it was like Guatemalan Nicaraguan coffee blend from Kroger, and did a hot brew on it, so because I wanted to get some of the bitterness from the coffee. And so I actually put like, it was about 10 ounces of coffee in there, and I did a really strong batch of coffee and then put that in the keg before I kegged it. And that's kind of where we are now. And I also used a chocolate flavoring from it's one-on-one flavorings. And so I put a couple of like a milliliter of the chocolate, the Dutch chocolate in there as well, to kind of make it a chocolate coffee stout.
Sure. So that must just be a high-powered extract, huh?
Oh yeah, they make some really high-powered stuff.
Wow.
So that's kind of how it was. And I've adjusted my water profile and all that stuff to match the style. And then as far as the yeast goes, I used Fermentus SO4 for the yeast on it. So it came in, a little bit higher gravity, as you would expect from SO4, but that lent a little bit of sweetness to it, which kind of accentuated a little bit of that chocolate and coffee. So it actually, once I got everything all combined together, it turned out pretty good.
You can tell it's an English yeast strain for sure. It's kind of got that little bit of minerally, a little bit of plummy, kind of fruity ester. I don't really know the Newport because it's all boil. I don't know that it's jumping out at me. We could talk to it, but what is the Newport like? What are the tasting descriptors for that?
I'll have to, let me.
You need a minute to fix your light?
Maybe. I don't know what happened here.
The lights went out at Christmas.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm definitely not familiar with Newport as well, so I could.
Let me see here real quick.
Look it up here too. I think your coffee blend is spot on. I mean, I get.
Yeah. Well, and the thing it wasn't really bitter. It was it definitely had a more like a toffee and a little bit of a chocolate note to it and stuff. Because I actually had, I brewed a batch of the coffee and then, drank some before I put it in the beer because I wanted to see what we're looking at. So, it was definitely not a super like like a Starbucks kind of bitter.
Sure. Yep.
Described as pungent and resiny, low aromatics of citrus, earth, wine, balsamic. A little less citrus and somewhat comparable to nugget, and that's kind of why I used it in this in the beer. I had bought some and I had it for a while and I just hadn't used very much of it. Common styles for the hop are barley wine, double IPAs, blondes, pale ales, imperial ales, stouts, American amber ales, brown ales. So there's a lot of, it's pretty versatile. And then Rogue actually use it in some of their beers. So
I wonder if that's because they're from Newport, right? I mean, that's the name of the city.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I almost wonder if, Chip, some of that plum fruitiness, the fruit esters that were coming out, those darker fruits could be a little bit of that wine characteristic too, maybe from those hops.
Yeah, once you read the description, it's kind of cool to like say a couple of things first and then have somebody read the description versus like leading the jury a little bit. But yeah, I got an earthiness, kind of this like muddiness almost, but I'm thinking that's like the coffee doing that. Probably this yeast and the hops doing it. It's really interesting. So this wasn't planned to be a coffee stout. And I think that's an interesting thing to point out. Like it was more of a fix, I don't know, a happy accident, right?
Yeah. I mean, literally, I was looking to fix it because it really was not bitter enough. And the bitterness, as far as the hop bitterness, was there, okay, but I wasn't getting that deeper, like more of a grab you coffee type bitterness. And I think probably because I've been leaving out a lot of the like dark roasted malts, like roasted barley and stuff like that, because I find to get a little bit of astringency, and so I've been kind of messing with some of that stuff. And it seemed like I maybe went a little bit too light, or a little bit too far in removing that. But then when I thought, well, what I need to do to fix this thing is probably add some coffee to it, and not like a cold steep or a cold brew or something like that. I actually want the bitterness from the coffee, where a lot of times people will do a cold steep or, you know, a dry bean or whatever you want to call it, and not get the bitterness, but get the flavor. So I wanted like all of that, and it really kind of seemed to bring the beer together.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is your usual coffee treatment? Say if you're brewing something that you want to be a coffee stout or a coffee porter or a coffee blonde.
Probably like a little bit of black patent and a little bit of roasted barley, something like that. You know, if I really want it to be like that, I'm going to be.
No, I mean, what would you do with coffee usually? Since it sounds like.
I would do like a cold steep, probably like a cold steep with the coffee, and then, you know, add that at kegging.
At kegging.
I certainly wouldn't. I don't normally do. You know, I don't add coffee to the end of the boil or anything like that. I just add. You know, it would be. I just, if I wanted the flavor, I would add it. Do like a cold steep. That would be my go-to normally.
I'm thinking of, and I've never done this method, but I think people have done it to where they're cold steeping the actual grains. Have you guys heard about that and trying to do something with the blacks, trying to get it in? Brian, have you done that before?
Yeah, actually, I did an experiment like a long time ago in my YouTube career, where I did.
Is this where we do the link right up here? No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, up here. Yeah. But I did a cold steep. I did several different iterations of a beer, like a darker beer, and I did a cold steep grain. I did adding the dark grains to the mash, and then I did another iteration of that where I added the dark grains at the end of the mash, that's kind of a technique that a lot of people are doing now, where they're adding the dark grains towards the end of the mash, so you're not getting a lot of that astringency that you normally would out of those dark grains. And, you know, that's how a lot of people are combating it now. But it was really interesting, and I took it to a local homebrew shop for a homebrew club meeting, and we had everybody taste it and stuff, and it was the beers were completely different, from the cold steep, you know, dark grains to the, you know, full mash grains. It was just a ton of, it was really, really different across that spectrum. So
which of those three kind of yielded the least roasty, least acrid kind of result?
It would have been the cold steep. The cold steep, yeah. The cold steep turned out more like a brown ale with a little bit of coffee in the background. But then I think everybody kind of preferred the one that was like the last 15 minutes edition.
Okay. Yeah.
To the mash, where it was like it picked up, you know, the color and some of the flavor and everything, but not a lot of astringency. So
we were at the Badass Brewery once upon a time years ago, and we were brewing. Dawson's book Mashmaker has a recipe called Nectat That Says Evil Black IPA. It's like one of the best names. But he calls for cold steeping, like in a gallon of water, whatever the black malt is. And it was really interesting. We were like, there's no way this will have much gravity. It still had like 1060 gravity. And I can't remember if it was like Black Prince or what it was, but I was shocked that like a specialty malt that roasted would still have like that much sugar potential to it. It was kind of eye-opening. Let's point out the can, because Todd wanted to point out that when Brian sends you a can, it comes Pro-Am, professional manager.
I would almost say above professional. There's a lot of times you can't even find this information on a professional can. So it's, and you know a lot more about the beer than when you go shopping at the beer store. So
the other night I was drinking one of the beers of Christmas, and it's kind of a drier, also roasty stout, and something magical happened. I ate a little bit of your Rice Krispie with that beer, and I'm thinking it's going to happen here as well, because this is also not really sweet. Like, this is no pastry stout by any stretch of the imagination. Right. So when I drank the two together, they kind of formed the pastry stout on my palate. It was
nice.
2 + 2 = 4. So I'm going to try it real quick.
There you go. Try it. Give it a shot.
Man, it makes the coffee stand out, actually.
Yep, very much so.
Because
nice sweetness on the end.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. So tell me real quick, this doesn't need to go down a huge rabbit hole, but maybe tell me a little bit of like the processes of all these treats you sent us.
Yeah, so the Rice Krispies, it's kind of like been a long-standing tradition of my dad used to make them all the time, and I suppose he probably still makes them, but it's like 2 sticks of butter and like a bunch of marshmallows, and then just, you know, it's all about, it's almost like brewing, man. It's like, you know, you keep adding Rice Krispies till you get the consistency you want. It's like, it's almost like mashing in on something. It's like, okay, I'm getting close here. I'm like, I'm good. So they always wind up with a little bit of Rice Krispies left over in the box, it seems like. But yeah, so I mean, and I try to make mine where they're like nice and gooey and buttery and super flavorful, much better than what you get from when you buy those little blue cellophane packs at the store.
Way better.
Now the chocolate cashew there that Chip was just eating,
Man, they're so good.
that is actually something that I this was kind of something I didn't have a recipe for it or anything. I kind of picked it up on my own. So I use egg whites and beat the egg whites until they're kind of frothy, like almost like not quite a meringue, but just where they're nice and frothy, and toss the cashews in it. But then I took dark chocolate and powdered sugar and mixed it until I got a consistency that I liked. I'd stick my finger in there and taste it and see what it tastes like. I'll just go by, kind of go by taste. And then once I got it to where the taste that I wanted, then I tossed the cashews that were coated with the egg whites in the chocolate and powdered sugar, and then put them in the oven.
Okay.
On like 350 for about 20 minutes or so to kind of like solidify the sugar and all that kind of stuff, and make the coating where it was like stick to the cashews.
Sure.
Now
that's awesome.
Now the pecans, those were egg whites also. Beat up some egg whites. I think it was like 2 egg whites, half a cup of sugar, and then like probably 2 or 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, and like beat that whole mixture together until it was like homogenized, and then dumped like a pound of pecans in there. And then I put a half sheet cake pan in the oven with like probably 4 or 5 tablespoons of butter, and just kind of like let it melt out on there. And then once it was melted, pulled it out, dumped the pecans on there, spread them all out, and then baked it and kept turning them and baking them and turning them and bake them. And like, I think it was like 350 degrees until they were like dried out and nice and crunchy like they are. The cheese, have you guys got to the cheese yet?
Yeah.
I haven't had it yet, but I got it.
Smoked white cheddar, Applewood smoked. Is that true?
Applewood smoked. So the cheese is actually, I bought it from it's like a 2-year-old cheddar from Sam's Club, and I cut it into chunks like what you guys have, and then I have a cold smoker for my pellet grill, so I can put the cheese on there and smoke it at probably like 65-70 degrees, so it doesn't like melt the cheese, but it just like imparts a smoke flavor. So I smoked the cheese for like an hour with this Applewood smoke, like just completely, totally engulfed with smoke for like an hour. And it was a combination of pellets and actual like wood chips. So I smoked it for an hour, pulled it off, let it dry out a little bit, and then vacuum sealed it. And then, obviously you guys got it. So
dude, the smoke is so good on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yummy.
And I've messed with it a little bit. I've done like 2-hour smokes and an hour and a half smoke, and I think the hour smoke is just right, because it's like it just gets into it enough that you get that flavor, but it's not like overpowering. Now the snack sticks, those are 100% pork.
Ooh,
and
snack stick, boy.
Yeah. So I made up a gigantic batch of those. It was like probably, I think maybe 5 or 6 pounds of pork shoulder, ground it up real nice. Added some jalapenos from my garden in the back in them, and then some high temperature cheddar cheese, and put them in the collagen casings, like the amber collagen casings, and then let them sit overnight in the oven to let them kind of ferment a little bit, because I put a little bit of there's like a bacteria that you put in the meat to kind of raise the pH or lower the pH to where it's more acidic, where they're more shelf stable.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a lactofirm or something like that. So it's like a lactobacillus almost, basically, that goes in the meat. So you let them proof or ferment or whatever you want to call it, and then I cold smoked those, and then did a hot smoke on them for like 165 or 185 degrees for like 2 or 3 hours until they were done. So
this is amazing. This
a lot of work.
Left turned into food nerd. This is awesome. So it sounds like you just freestyled some of this.
Basically. A little bit, yeah. I mean, kind of based on some previous knowledge, I guess, if you will, because I've done the cashews before, I've done the pecans before, I've done the cheese before. The snack sticks were the first time, but I mean, it's, you know, it was one of those things where I've made sausages and all that kind of stuff before, so I had a pretty good idea of, you know, what was going to go down. But when I made them, I was like, damn, these are good.
Yeah, they are. They're very good.
Man, I love knowing that those jalapenos are like your backyard jalapenos. And they've got a little zip on them. Do you see
And
those?
the cool part about them is they were like late on the plant, and they were red. So like they had turned from green to red, and like I just chopped them up because usually when they turn from green to red, they're a little bit milder. So I just kind of eyeballed how many I put in there, and I'm like, I hope this shit isn't too hot.
No, it's a nice mix.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they came out where it's just a little bit of bite, but not too much.
I got to ask you, because it came up in another beer of Christmas for this year. Do you say pralines or pralines?
Probably pralines.
Yeah, pralines.
Apparently pralines is how they pronounce it in New Orleans.
Okay.
Specifically, I guess.
I can see that.
There's a beer we had called Pralines Foster that Abby and I pronounced it that way because it's from a New Orleans brewery. So I assume that's how they would want it represented. But yeah, it's kind of like crawfish, crayfish, pralines, pralines.
So yeah, Brian, I gotta say as well about one final thing on your beer. You know, I like a big 12% stout sometimes, but sometimes the syrupiness of that stout and how thick they are can get a little aggressive. You know, but I like this 8%. It's not too thick, so you can actually drink it. I think you could have a couple of them, you know, instead of just that one the one big 12%.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you because I mean sometimes those imperial stouts are just like, you know, like cough syrup almost. You know, it's like they're so thick. But this one actually, it actually the body of it, and that's why I added some of the flake barley in there, was trying to kind of boost some of the body. But it still actually is pretty viscous. I mean, it's not like a thick beer.
No.
So thanks for sending this, man. It meant a lot to get this. Like the food on top of the beer, extraordinary effort.
Chop and brew.
You willing to share the beer recipe and maybe a food recipe, or do you even have like the food stuff written down to the point where you could share it?
I can get you something over. I mean, I can get you something over for it for sure.
All right. So we don't know what it is. We're gonna have the beer and maybe some of the food in the video description down below. Brian, tell the people where they can find you and your adventures in brewing.
Yes, you can find us at www.shortcircuitedbrewers.com, or you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/shortcircuitedbrewers, on the Instagram at shortcircuitedbrewers, on the Twitter at shortcircuitbrew, and then on Facebook at shortcircuitedbrewers, and then also on Reddit. I'm over there on that crazy maniacal place at Short Circuit Brewer. That's where you can find us at.
All right, man. Todd, thanks for hopping on.
You can find me at Northern Brewer. I'll be there working, at least till after Christmas.
You can find Todd at tallhomebrewer.cute, handsome.
Yeah, what's his OnlyFans page?
Man, you don't have enough money, Brian. I charge a lot for that.
Todd's standing desk at work is just 8 feet tall. It's crazy.
Yeah. No kidding. Hanging from the rafters instead of raising up from the floor.
Yeah. Chip uses it as a fort. He climbs underneath there, eats his lunch, takes a nap.
I don't know if y'all could hear that, but Charlie P just let out a weird sleeping howl. It was kind of weird.
He's dreaming, huh?
He's dreaming. He wants some of that cheese, boy.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, and be on the lookout, guys. Because I'm gonna send you some more beers, so be on the lookout. I'll send you guys some more of the stuff from the Short Circuit Brewer here.
Yeah, man. Tell me, just real quick. Tell me like one thing you're looking forward to after the new year, as far as your show and all your stuff.
You know, I've been dabbling in a little bit more of the like tips and tricks and kind of how-to stuff like that, and I think people have been really enjoying that. I've been enjoying doing it, so I'm going to try to incorporate some more of that how-to stuff, and just kind of, you know, I think a lot of times that, you know, after you've been brewing for, you know, 8, 10, 12 years, whatever, you kind of take a lot of stuff for granted. Like you just, you know, it's just something you just kind of know, I guess. And people that are just new to the hobby, they may not, have had all the experiences and the quite frankly, the disasters that we've had and know how to avoid them. So, I want to do some more of that stuff, like yeast starters, like, and working on how to brew your first beer, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that stuff be coming. And then also some more DIY stuff, building some brewing systems and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a jam-packed 2022. So
Deuce.
Good work. Deuces.
All right. Merry Christmas, y'all. Cheers. Thanks for watching all of the beers of Christmas to the fans, and tune in tomorrow and see what we're getting into.
All right, everybody. The 12 beers of Christmas continue tomorrow with a beverage that is more than a beer. It's a malt beverage flavored with wild juniper berries, fashioned after a popular Finnish cocktail. Join us for a glass of Bevy Long Drink as the 12 beers of Christmas keep a jingling.
What about man, have you ever seen Snow Day? Do you guys remember this movie?
Oh,
It's worth checking out. It's like a Nickelodeon movie from, was it 2000 or 2002 or something like that? Dude, it's legit fun. Like, we caught ourselves like watching it just for the heck of it because I had remembered Chris Elliott being in it, but it turns out it's like Chevy Chase is in it. Freaking
Oh, really?
Iggy Pop plays like the DJ at an outdoor ice rink on
Oh,
this
man.
Snow Day. You should check it out because like the jokes are like on point for being like PG-13, and there's like 3 different kind of plots happening, and it's almost kind of like, it felt, now that I think about it, it felt like a Christmas episode of The Simpsons, but like in real life. It's really cool.
Okay.